The opinions expressed on the following program are strictly those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of WCZT, Regional Media, Coastal Broadcasting, personnel, or advertisers. Money Talk with Melanie, brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
This is important because it's your money.
Your money.
Money Talk with Melanie
Money Talk with Melanie.
on 98.7 The Coast.
Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from beautiful and very, very chilly Wildwood, New Jersey, but it still is a very beautiful place. Man, I don't know about you guys, but as we move into the first major swing of the holiday season, I don't know, my week's been a major cluster. Just gotta be honest. Are you all feeling that same, not having it together? Lest you think that I do have it together because of my social media. Somebody said that one time. You look like you have it so together. Your life looks so glamorous. I'm like, if you saw me behind them, if we did video, you would know that that is truly not the case, which I hope we'll be doing soon. But I like us doing video, and you can see how truly raggedy I honestly look behind the microphone by 7 o'clock at night after a full day of work and just trying to adult and whatnot. But Thanksgiving, I think this is the first normal Thanksgiving holiday we're going to have in a good while. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone from your family here at 98.7 The Coast, the Money Talk with Melanie. Lots to talk about. We're going to have, so starting with my day being a cluster, my second hour guest canceled right before the show, and I hustled to try to get another guest, and I couldn't. But my first hour guest, Mike Fitzpatrick from NCX Group, has been gracious enough to agree to stay for the entire 2 hours. And unfortunately, we have a lot to talk about. And the reason why I say unfortunately is because what we're going to discuss this evening are a couple of things, but mostly scams related to them. We're going to talk about Black Friday, a little bit about the history of Black Friday and what Black Friday is today, and some tips and tricks and things like that. And then we're also going to talk about Small Business Saturday, which is also, of course, very important, and the origin of that and what we should do as good citizens regarding Small Business Saturday. And then we should probably also talk about Cyber Monday while we're at it, because why not? Because this is a money show. I had to get creative. And all of this I thought of on my ride over when I was like, oh, wow, I do not have a second hour guest. How's this gonna work out? Usually I scramble and I can usually drum up a second hour guest. Usually, but it's the day before Thanksgiving, and I think people are probably cooking or day drinking, which, if I wasn't on the air at 7 o'clock at night, I'm not saying that's not what I would be doing as well. So I can relate, I can understand. But you can listen to these wonderful money tips as we launch into the holiday season. And if you are not going to be able to listen to the entire show, that's okay. The show will be posted as a podcast, and probably on Monday would be my guess. I think they're going to give the producers off this weekend, so probably by Monday or Tuesday it'll be posted as a podcast, so that the producers can get some turkey instead of worrying about uploading my podcast. Priorities. This is very important. So, because it's your money, after all, like I always say. But anyway, Mike Fitzpatrick, who is with the NCX Group, and if you don't know what they do, he's a frequent flyer on Money Talk with Melanie, and has been with me for a couple of years as far as being one of our guest experts, and he is a cybersecurity expert, and there are lots and lots of scams. And I'm going to talk about a few that you probably have not even heard of or thought about. And that's kind of the purpose, is always to be informative. I don't like, my students know, especially I had this class called Education Studies, where I taught kids how to be teachers and about the teaching profession. And when they wrote papers, I used to tell them, I don't want to see a lot of fluff. We all know what fluff is. If you've ever written a paper, there's some fluff. And I hate when I don't have a guest to fill the show with fluff. I really hate fluff. I find it irritating. So I wanted to bring you guys some good information that you'd still be able to use. And I thought, you know what? This is probably better than what I was going to do anyway. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Small Business Saturday. They're all kind of in one weekend, but they all have different purposes. And you might want to be strategic about how you're going to play your shopping game coming up. And you do want to be aware of the scams that are out there. There are several. And speaking of scams, this is the biggest, right? This FTX thing and cryptocurrency. And I get a lot of cryptocurrency questions. I've done a couple shows on cryptocurrency. And if you haven't heard, so there's this group called FTX. It was owned, and I say was, may it rest in peace or not so much, by this apparent alleged scammer who is this 30-year-old. His nickname is SBF. I'm trying to find his real name. I forget what his real name is. But he has this huge exchange called FTX. And they hit a lot of big time investors. And it turns out it was just a big old Ponzi scheme. And it started out, legitimate, the way most Ponzi schemes do. His name is Sam Bankman-Fried is his name. Wikipedia still has him as an American entrepreneur. I think that term is probably being used pretty loosely at this point. And they're actually, some people are actually calling him a former CEO. So that works. He apparently apologized yesterday to all of his employees and detailed the amount of leverage that was had in an internal letter. But he did a lot of very bad things. For example, he did not have a formal accounting department. Formal accounting that any business would have, that even my little media empire has an accounting person, small as it is. I mean, I'm kind of the part-time accounting person, and then my tax person does all the big stuff at the end of the year. But I'm an accounting person nonetheless. But this place had billions of dollars, and he had no accounting person. Now, the biggest part of this problem was, it's supposed to be regulated, and it seems that it wasn't being as heavily regulated as you would think. Now, you could look at this one of two ways, right? This was in the crypto sphere. You could look at this, maybe, possibly, as an opportunity to buy, and I'm actually looking at the crypto prices right now, live, and they're all up. And that's probably why, because after this company crashed, they're probably like, oh, they're sinking. Let's buy it up and it should go back up, which is not, it's kind of like the Warren Buffett way of doing things. When he sees a market crash, he sees opportunity, but he's got that kind of money. Well, we can all see that kind of opportunity, but I'm looking at specifically at this website called CoinDesk, and it shows you all the different types of crypto coins. And literally, they're all up right now, which is kind of wild. Just saying. It's kind of crazy. But this dude did some bad stuff. And how most crypto scams end up being crypto scams is he did the unspeakable. He did what you don't do. He made money that was supposed to be kept, these investments kept in these customers' accounts. You're not supposed to spend that money because it is not yours. But my dude was spending that money on luxury cars and yachts, all of his upper management, so to speak, but they barely had any management, had all these properties and very expensive luxury items. And I think his ex-girlfriend was quote unquote doing the books, but she was like, it was hard because numbers. Well, yeah. So it's an absolute disaster. They had spokespersons like Tom Brady was a spokesperson for FTX. FTX was on the side of a couple of stadiums. This is a huge deal, probably bigger than the Bernie Madoff scandal. It's just a huge scandal. If I were you, I would not be completely turned off to cyber or to cryptocurrency. Just because this happened, don't let this completely scare you. But what it does say is when you are, not going to be responsible for your own money, which a guest explained this a couple of shows ago, whether you could hire an exchange like FTX was for people to handle your investments and they keep it on a blockchain, or you could keep it on your own blockchain. I had a guest, I wish I could remember his name, who kept it on his own blockchain, like under his bed. You could do that, but you need to know what you're doing, and you can't lose your password. So like those are two like major things there. So, but this guy I think is going to go to jail. I don't see how he doesn't go to jail, with the exception, I couldn't resist. I was going to not get political, but he donated a lot of money to the left. Some on the right, some on the right too, but a lot of money to Democrats. And, they're in charge, and it's not being heavily regulated. You do the math. So he may not go to jail. I guess he'll go to jail when Hunter Biden goes. I don't know. He'll be in a cell right next to him. And Hillary Clinton, when she goes, then they'll all be in jail together. But it's interesting to watch. Just be careful out there when it comes to cryptocurrency. But I couldn't not mention FTX. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. When we come back, Mike Fitzpatrick.
Money Talk with Melanie, brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie
Money Talk with Melanie.
on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest this hour is actually our guest for the next 2 hours. I forgot he's going to hang in for 2 hours with me. Is cybersecurity expert Mike Fitzpatrick of the NCX group. He's going to talk to us about the state of internet scams, and there are many. Mike Fitzpatrick is the founder and CEO of NCX Group, which is a successful information risk management firm. Mike Fitzpatrick has, for over 35 years, been in the information technology business, where he began addressing the technical needs and security concerns of businesses embracing the internet. Today, through his company, the NCX Group Incorporated, Fitzpatrick leads a team of highly skilled engineers and professional consultants who are dedicated to providing security assessments and innovative strategies that protect critical data and ensure a business environment remains operational. Among his clientele are companies from the Fortune 2000 to the Fortune 50 in the fields of finance, healthcare, energy, and education, and probably a few entities that if he told you, he'd have to kill you. That wasn't in the bio. I just added that. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome back to the show, Mr. Mike Fitzpatrick.
Hey, Melanie, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing so much better now that I'm talking to you.
Oh, you are so kind. I'm dog tired, so I'm glad you're my guest tonight. It just feels like I'm just chatting with a friend that happens to be in front of, thousands of people. That's all.
We always have fun on these kind of calls, and they always go in a lot of different directions. And
you said that when I sent you the topics. I'm kind of like, ooh, I wonder what he has in mind.
Yeah, it's ever evolving. The threats are always changing. They're always morphing in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of tools out there now in which you can do some things with it. And as I told you before we started the show, what I've been playing with is artificial intelligence engines for content creation, for everything from tweets to articles to, I even had it today. I was experimenting and I said, can you write something using the theme of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas with cybersecurity as the theme? And within 30 seconds, I had a full poem.
Okay, now I've seen these ads on Facebook that's saying basically like, we'll do your social media for you. And it's AI. It's advertising AI.
Well, so there's, the tool that I'm talking about is a company called Jasper, which originally was Jarvis, but they ran into a problem with Marvel. And
I bet they did.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is Marvel didn't really copyright Jasper, so they could have gone to war over it. but discretion sometimes is the better part of valor.
Facts,
And
true.
so they rebranded and renamed. I still have all the swag under the name Jarvis because I was one of the original folks that signed up for it about a year and a half ago. They just completed their Series A funding and raised $125 million for what they're doing.
What?
So this is no joke.
You're always on the cutting edge, like always. You're always on it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's part of the fun of what I've done for so long. And thank God I started when I was 10.
Oh, yes,
because
indeed.
Otherwise, 35 years would be a really long time. So anyway, it's interesting to me how that can be used. And it actually rolls into some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight related to scams and how artificial intelligence can, you used to be able to spot the grammatical errors, right?
Right. True.
In phishing emails. Well, okay, so I can use an artificial intelligence engine that I buy a subscription to for $100 a month, and it comes with Grammarly, so it'll fix my grammar and my spelling.
Grammarly is the real MVP, for real.
Grammarly is awesome.
It is the only thing that keeps me from sounding crazy online. And if I sound crazy, trust me, it's because I'm doing it from my phone and I don't have Grammarly.
It's funny because even last Saturday I was playing on Facebook and posting dad jokes that were written by the AI engine.
Oh, really? Is that where they came from?
Yeah, you even liked one of them.
I did like one of them. I forget which one, but I did like one of them. It was funny.
But so it is. I mean, the AI's got a sense of humor, and you can use whatever tone of voice that you want. You can make it technical and informative. You can make it sound like Gary Vaynerchuk. Even the tweet I posted today about being on the show was in Gary Vaynerchuk's voice.
What?
Yeah.
The producer was just talking about that in between commercials. We were just talking about that. It's creepy. See, here's the thing. The nerd in me is like really happy about that and thinks that's awesome. The concerned citizen in me is really creeped out. Like when you told me about the deep fake videos years ago. Now people are getting onto them now, but I'm like, yeah, Mike told me about that like 5 years ago.
Well, I mean, there's actually, and while we're talking about deep fakes, if you have Peacock streaming, and the only reason I have it is for Champions League football and Manchester United when they aren't showing it on regular NBC. But the British shows that they have on Peacock,
they're very good, actually.
They're incredibly well written. They're not dumbed down for a society like ours in a lot of ways. So this show on Peacock is called The Capture. And what it is real-time deep fakes being used by the government to manipulate the population.
Oh, wow.
Altering voice and video real-time.
And can you, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit by just using the term deepfake like everybody knows what that is. Can you explain to the audience what a deepfake is?
Well, from a simple term standpoint, it is taking audio and video. And one of the examples that originally appeared online probably about 4 or 5 years ago was video of President Obama actually endorsing Trump. And it sounded like President Obama. So with deep fakes, you can, with the use of artificial intelligence and the processing power that we now have, you can basically create whatever you want it to be. And that's the thing that I was blown away with in this show, The Capture. They really took it to an extreme with what could be done. It is the problem that we're all going to face going forward. As my dad used to say way back when, look for the hook, son, look for the hook.
Exactly.
But at the same time, he used to always say too, believe none of what you read and only half of what you see. Well, it used to be I would always go look for videos on something online so I can actually see it in context and not with what somebody has written. Now you can't trust the videos.
Right. You can't trust a picture, right? They used to say
Right.
a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, is it?
Yes.
Or it still is, but whose words?
And what message are they trying to use, and how are they trying to manipulate? Because it's fair game out there right now.
That is so very frightening. And you're right. You used to really be able to tell whether or not, somebody's trying to fake you out or whatever. You can kind of tell by the way a person is talking to you. But it's kind of, same rules as before. Just don't talk to strangers. Right? Like, don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers on the internet. Like, don't do
kindergarten, man. Stranger danger.
You know what? Speaking of which, that kind of brings me to my first huge scam, and we talked about this with my good friend Eva Rosenberg, the tax mama, a couple weeks ago about romance scams. That's huge. $1 billion in losses in 2021.
I have and my wife is actually tired of hearing this. One of the things that we do in our assessments is social engineering, and basically at its base level with these romance scams or tax scams or whatever scam it might be, the base level is two things. One, people are more isolated, especially after COVID, than they have ever been in their lives.
Sure.
We've gotten used to being in front of our computer screens and not being outside and not talking to people and keeping things at a distance. And so we've gotten used to that. The other reality is, the other side of this is, and I say this all the time with my wife, because she asked me, how did you guys talk your way into that? He said, there's one rule that I have, Sheldon. She goes, what's that? And I said, people love to be helpful.
Yes. It's psychology, though, isn't it? I mean, isn't it
it's all
ultimately psychology, right?
Correct. And the Bible for this, for social engineering is the movie Fletch.
Yes.
I mean, it honestly is. I mean, it comes down to, Melanie, in the past, we've talked our way into the skater room in a water treatment facility.
What?
So, yeah, it was part of the assessment. It was part of the district's assessment to determine how vulnerable they were. So we talked our way past the front desk. We talked our way past personnel along the way. We talked our way into the skater room where the dials are that control the chemical makeup of the water.
Wow.
So, again, people love to be helpful. They also love to show you how much they know.
Yes.
So if you ask the right questions, if you position it in the right way, and you have enough other questions to go along with it, they'll tell you exactly what you want to hear. I mean, I can't tell you how many times during an assessment, and I'm going to use that qualifier, during an assessment.
Right. You weren't breaking the law. You were not attempting to break the law. You were assessing.
Right. We were hired to do this. And so one mortgage company, we literally walked in the front door, walked past the front desk, walked to the back of the building, found the internet, or found the IT room, walked in, and we were there in the middle of all the servers for this mortgage company.
What?
All you got to do is act like you belong.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's so true, though. And nobody's going to say anything.
No, they're afraid to.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. They are. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to say, so, I mean, and I love the fact that, a lot of the funding now that's coming out of state assemblies and the federal government for cybersecurity, it's absolutely needed. But the problem is they didn't include any funding for people like me to actually create guidance for these folks. Technology is wonderful, but cybersecurity, business resiliency, comes down to three things. It comes down to people, process, and technology. If you're just thinking you're going to solve this with the technology, you've missed 2/3 of the problem.
That's exactly right. Well, you know what your problem is, Mike? You don't have a lobbyist.
I've said this in the past. If my parents didn't raise me with morals, I would have gone to D.C. and been a lobbyist.
That's exactly right. If there was a lobbyist, that would not be an issue, right? You know that the proper things would be written into that law because you wouldn't be writing it, the lobbyist would. And the boneheads in Congress would know that they don't know enough about cybersecurity to properly write these bills. That's what I find really irritating about our government.
Well, it hasn't stopped any of them from writing laws about things they don't know anything about.
Oh, about the economy, for example, about cryptocurrency.
Anything.
Is there anything? Oh, about what's important to black people, like whether or not I get microaggressions or somebody talks about my hair. Like all of these things that would have... Sorry, I was a little more concerned about my education. Silly me. Okay, I'm sorry. I digress. Go. They're always passing laws about 50 white folks passing laws about what's important to black people. Thanks for the no discriminating against my hair. Appreciate that. Can I get some STEM training in predominantly black neighborhoods, please? That would be more helpful than not having people discriminating against my hair. I'm sorry. It's a real bone of... Am I wrong, Mike?
No, it's a lack of priorities and just basis in reality that's the real problem.
Financial literacy, anyone? Can we do some financial literacy training? And these wow, I can't imagine why there's a generational wealth gap. Maybe some more financial literacy training, maybe. No discriminating against their hair. No discriminating against cornrows. Thanks so much.
Well, what about the white folks that have cornrows?
That's you mean the cultural appropriators? We've gotten way off the mark here.
We're in trouble now. Thank God it's Thanksgiving week and no one's listening.
in their car going, "What just happened?" What? I'm so serious, but they don't know. They pass these laws with good intentions. Was my point, and they don't know what they're talking about. They need a Mike Fitzpatrick as a consultant to talk to these lobbyists when they're writing these bills so that there isn't a gap, like you said. Something bad's going to happen, and then they'll realize that there's a gap there, and then they'll write that into the law. And it'd be nice if we could be proactive instead.
No, I don't disagree. I've got, like you, I'm connected politically through a lot of different people. And out here in California, they recently put in a sweetener, from a political standpoint.
An investment, if you will.
Investment, into the California state budget without really passing a law of $100 million for cybersecurity for community colleges. And there's just one problem. And I've read the law. I've got 5-6 friends that are California Assembly and Senate reps. And they went ahead and appropriated the funds for this, which is great.
Right, that's fine.
We've worked with probably 50% of the community college districts in the state of California. These people do incredible work with one arm tied behind their back, trying to keep data secure. I mean, these people are really admirable in what they're trying to do day in, day out, not having the resources. The out of the $100 million, $25 million is appropriated for an ongoing or reoccurring basis in the budget.
Okay.
75 million is a one-time hit. So you've given them enough money to start a program, to start to develop something, to start to hire the right people, to bring in the right consultants. But you didn't give you did not give them enough money to continue it.
So they don't understand that it's an ongoing threat, and they don't understand that technology is constantly evolving.
Melanie, they didn't even give them enough money to pay for the service contracts each year on the technology that they're buying for cybersecurity.
Well, I feel like you're now just talking as a greedy entrepreneur, Michael.
No, actually, I care about these people.
Are you sure? I think it's just you being
Positive.
a greedy. I think it's just the greedy entrepreneur talking because, you guys are just in business to be rich and be on your yachts and stuff all day.
I've actually traveled the state of California for free to go to their board meetings to talk about cybersecurity when asked.
Really?
Really.
No, I don't think
so
that's
important.
true. I don't think that's true. I think that you don't work very hard at all. And if the money just comes in the NCX,
It
just flows.
It just flows.
Just flows. You don't
Nobody
do
has to
anything. Exactly. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, do you know any entrepreneurs? And usually they're like, no. I'm like, well, go talk to one if you get an opportunity. They work like 70, 80, 90 hours a week.
That's on a short week.
Exactly. They worry constantly because other people's livelihoods rely on them. Now, if you want that kind of stress and pressure, you can get paid like they do.
The funny thing is, Melanie, and people ask me all the time, why do I do what I do? And I've been in IT for a long time. We're in our 20th year this year with NCX. I do this because, one, I think it's in my DNA. I have a really strong protective gene, genetics, right?
You do. That's that alpha energy. That's why we're friends.
and then number two, I know how hard it is to start a business from nothing. I understand how difficult this is. I understand the sleepless nights. I understand trying to figure out, back in 2008, how to keep the payroll met. When everything is dying around you, credit lines have been rescinded. I get all of that. And to have everything that whatever business it might be, whether it's small, medium, or large, the consequence of a cybersecurity breach is devastating. And I don't mean for a little while. I mean for a long
term. It is.
If I mention Target to you,
I remember when they had one. We're up against a break. We'll talk about it on the other side of the break. But I'm going to keep Target on the brain. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We're talking to Mike Fitzpatrick, who is the founder and CEO of NCX Group. We're talking about cybersecurity and mostly talking about scams. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
Money Talk with Melanie, brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics
Money Talk with Melanie.
on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest this hour is Mike Fitzpatrick. He is the founder and CEO of NCX Group, which is a top-notch cybersecurity firm. So we are talking to him about scams because the reason why I brought this up is because we are encroaching upon Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and Cyber Monday. So I thought we'd talk a bit about that and a bit about some scams that you might encounter. Some are common, some are not so common. But I bet some of you are not aware of what Black Friday is. So I thought I'd intro this segment and talk about that a little bit, which Black Friday is derived from an economic term, believe it or not, that is derived or denotes when companies begin to be in the black financially, when they say you're doing well financially, you're in the black, or you don't owe anything, you're making all profit. When you're in the red, that is when you owe, or you're losing money, or you're not making money in your business. So Black Friday is the day when businesses play catch up. Now, I don't believe that's to be taken literally. I don't think that that's the case anymore, particularly since we've added Small Business Saturday and Cyber Monday, which I'll talk about in the next couple segments. But in the meantime, we are talking about scams, and Mike was talking about Target, and we were talking about cybersecurity breaches, and I think you were about to talk about the one that Target had.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned Target, and the funny thing is that happened between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
That makes sense.
So everyone remembers that, and I still go into Target every so often, and I still ask the cashiers, how many people are using credit cards versus cash?
Everybody.
And it's really funny. They're not trusted with credit cards as much as they once were.
Oh, really? So people are still, so some people have really switched to cash or checks or things like that?
Yeah, you go into Target, they're still using a lot of cash. It's interesting. That breach, Melanie, was in 2013.
Oh, that was a long time ago. That was a good while ago.
It'll be 10 years next year.
Oh, wow. And
people still remember it.
See,
it's still buried in people's minds.
I look at all that stuff as being really connected. And so it's not that I don't believe you, because how long have I known you? And how many times are you going to give me the same advice that I'm going to keep ignoring, even though I know you're an expert and you absolutely know what you're talking about, until I lose all my money and you're going to be like, did you use the password app that I told you about every single show, Melanie?
Yeah.
Did you do X? Did you do Y? Did you stop using Google like I told you to do at least 10 years ago, Melanie? Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay. Well, it's a withdrawal process.
It really is. How do you get rid of the Google?
Well, use DuckDuckGo.
I do. When I know that Google's playing games, I go to DuckDuckGo. And if you're listening and you want to do a little interesting experiment, and you think that Google does not, how can I put this delicately, pay attention to your searches, I'll put it to you this way. As an African-American woman who happens to be a Republican conservative, if I Google something like gun control, I'm going to get completely different hits than, say, if I'm in a classroom and the IP address is a public school classroom. You'll get completely different results. And there's a reason. There's a reason for that.
Oh, it's confirmation bias. Is at the end of the day, that's kind of where it falls in. I mean, the whole analytics around websites and SEO, and
right.
We're actually going through and updating our stuff as far as relevancy and keywords and specific keywords. Less general, more specific is kind of what Google is looking for these days. But I mean, as far as the audience is concerned, yeah, I mean, you need to use technology that is not spying on you. So that kind of wipes out everything from Google.
Right, and does not say, oh, by the way, everything that you uploaded, we own. Like, oh, I don't know, your business plan?
Used to be that was actually in the terms and conditions years ago.
Yeah.
They changed it now, but that was in the terms and conditions.
But think about the fact that they even had that there. Like, what are you doing?
Because, well, I mean, it's like PayPal right now with the $2,500 fine for saying something that they don't like, that they'll just be able to withdraw from your account.
Yeah, that's insane. And they were like, oh, oops, we didn't mean for you to find that out. I mean, we didn't mean to put that in our
well, it's still there.
Our policy. Is it still in there? I thought they said they took it out.
No, it's still there.
Oh, that's amazing. So
they messaged it that it was a mistake and that they would take it out. Well, it didn't go away.
Oh, really?
At least my last reading. Now, I just saw a new set of terms and conditions with PayPal, so I'm going to go look. But nobody reads those things. They just click through them. Let me have the drug. And
yes, you're right.
Let me move on.
There's a hilarious episode of South Park that I can't. It's not for family radio. I can't describe what happens in the show, but there's an extremely funny episode where South Park goes into what actually happens when you click those agreements and you don't read them. And what's in those agreements, but I can't say it on the radio. You're just gonna have to look that up on YouTube or something.
My God. I'll have to.
But it is hysterical, and if that really happened, believe me, people would be reading their agreements. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally agree with those terms. Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. But you have to be careful. Now, I will tell you, there's a couple of scams like ransomware. I feel like everybody's kind of aware of that, right? But it's expanding. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with shopping. But what's scary to me about the ransomware is how they're doing hospitals with the ransomware.
When you say hospitals, what do you mean?
Meaning they're locking down hospital information and saying, you pay us $1 million and we'll let you back in. And then they can't get access to patients' information in order to treat them because they're...
So one of the top 3 categories for ransomware for the last, I want to say almost 10 years now, because it's been around a while. The top 3 industries hit are banking and finance, healthcare, and education.
Right.
Those are the top 3, far and away.
I believe that. It's scary.
And ransomware in 2021, by June of 2021, had already surpassed all of the ransomware ever in 2020. It was a record.
And we're really, as far as healthcare goes, we are really at the mercy of these hospitals and how well they secure their information.
Well, you would think, with HIPAA and some of the other things that are out there, we've done projects for hospitals. To say I'm surprised with some of the things that we found, yeah, I'm surprised because you would expect it to be better. HIPAA's been around for over 20 years now.
And HIPAA's a huge deal. It's like that's not a small thing to violate HIPAA.
Well, okay, but so again, I don't want to be the problem child in the room, but with the pandemic that we just went through and digital passports and required vaccinations, doesn't that violate HIPAA for everybody to know that?
I would think so. But there must be something in the law, a waiver. I don't know, well, I'm supposed to know. I'm supposed to know about HIPAA a little bit more than the usual person.
There's really not. There's not an escape clause in the Constitution either.
It's a living document, Mike. Come on now. It's living.
But because even with you having been in education for so long, right? The whole online classroom during the pandemic.
Oh well, I brought that up. Nobody checked anybody's laptop. Nobody said we're in and out of kids' records all the time.
No, that actually violated FERPA.
Sure, that violated FERPA.
Total violation of FERPA.
Because what if somebody else uses your computer and sees like a kid's information or whatever? Very easily could happen.
It's not even that. You've outsourced the classroom to a third-party company who now has the ability to monitor everything that's going on and know every student that's in the classroom and in the school system.
Oh, wait a minute. Like Google?
No, like Zoom.
Which is owned by whom?
Well, Zoom, all the development for Zoom takes place in China.
Yeah.
All the servers are in China.
Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to make sure
I'd like to
everybody.
thank the education department for that.
And they're not friendly. And, I heard this morning. It was said perfectly. They are not a competitor. They are an adversary. Know the difference.
Yes.
Our allies are competitors. France, England, they're competitors. They're not adversaries. China's adversaries. They're adversaries. They should not have access to. But I was thinking in terms of Google Classroom, but I forgot about Zoom.
Yeah, no, I mean at least Google's servers are here.
True.
Zoom, on the other hand, all their development, everything else is based out of China.
I think that's why a lot of companies, at least a lot of companies that are concerned about their security, are using Microsoft Meets, which I'm not sure, with Bill Gates at the helm, if that's the best thing either. But that's probably.
Well, but I mean, it comes down to picking the lesser of two evils sometimes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Even the one online meeting program that was most secure that three-lettered agencies actually used, a platform called Wick, was recently purchased by Amazon. So it's
great.
It's like, okay, yeah. So
that's over.
So getting to the scams and talking about the romance scams. Like I said, people are lonely today. They're not as connected as they once were. I've got a 20-something-year-old son. I mean, you want to talk about the disruption to a 20-year-old male's, 20s with what's happened over the last 2 years?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. What these kids are being asked to deal with and take in stride. But from the romance side, what was it? I watched this on Netflix, probably about a year ago, maybe. The Tinder Swindler.
Yes. But maybe I'm just a selfish girl to date. I don't know. You start asking me for money, you're getting ghosted. I'm sorry. Boy, bye. I can recommend some charities for you to contact. I can recommend some government agencies to help you out of your bind, but I'm not giving you any money.
Oh, they didn't just give money. They gave hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I know. That $1 billion that I talked about in romance scams was only 24,000 people.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's and a lot of times people don't report it. I mean, it's really interesting, even with business email compromises, right? Phishing, where people will use the information to exfiltrate money out of a company or get an illicit wire transfer sent to them, that kind of thing. They're really pretty good. We had a client come to us. Well, they became a client at the time, and came to us with their problem where they were taken for about $25,000.
Woof.
And so they reached out to me because, to see what could be done. And we looked at it and looked at the email, and it was under the underlying email of it, and it looked to be legit. It was just off by one or two characters from the legitimate name of the business.
Wow.
But it was a Google account that was being used, a Gmail account that was being used to spoof the actual email address. So if you're looking at it quick and you don't take the time, or you're looking at it on your mobile phone, the payment for $25,000 gets approved by somebody in accounting and goes out, and then they send you a wire, your ACH information. They ship it in, they take it into a bank account, they move it to another bank account, and then they close that bank account that it was sent to. Gone. And so I reached out to a friend. I'm friendly with local district attorney and his chief investigator. Couple of things. One, when they take $25,000 from the business, there isn't the resources out there to go track it down and find it for you. Unless it's $250,000, that's their threshold.
That's the government's threshold to recover your money.
Well, to even investigate it.
Wow.
They just don't have the resources. It's so rampant, and it has been for a long time. And, even with the FBI, because I have friends within the FBI and the cybercrime units with the FBI. I mean, unless it goes across state lines and it's got a couple of million attached to it, they don't have the resources to really investigate it.
Wow. So,
and the bad guys know this. And by the time it does get investigated, they're gone. I don't know. I mean, there's only a few that have actually been caught and have served jail time over this kind of thing.
But it's not enough. There's not enough of them, or people wouldn't be doing it. That's how I see it. The people who are doing this, and listen, may God have mercy on their souls, or not so much, because I just don't know how you roll out of bed and say, instead of going and having a legitimate job, I'm going to scam some 80-year-old out of $1 million. Like, I just don't know how you live like that.
Well, the scams have always been there. Those people have always been there. They've just moved online.
Right. They're just doing it high tech.
Yeah. Now they can do it at scale.
Right. That is true. That is very true. We have 1 minute left to commercial, probably less than that. I was looking at some facts about romance scams, and it speaks to what you were saying earlier about AI. But some of these people are live. When I was talking to Eva Rosenberg about this, she was saying that some of these people are like captives of the cartels. Like, they apply for these jobs and then they lock them up and force them to do these scams, which is crazy. The craziest thing I've ever heard.
And it's I'd like to say it's unusual. My next door neighbor was taken for about $5,000 because she received a call from somebody pretending to be her son, who was supposedly in jail and needed it for bail.
Yep.
So they're not even just using online; they're going to the phone again too.
They are. And in 2022, it says online scams have doubled in 2022, which I believe that. I feel like people were home and just had more time to think about how to scam people. I don't know.
Use AI. You can get creative.
Right? About what's going to be effective and what isn't. And just keep trying new things, right? That's ridiculous.
We use it in our phishing tests.
Oh, my gosh. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My guest this hour is Mike Fitzpatrick. We're talking about different scams to look out for as we enter into the holiday shopping season. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
Hey, it's Jack here from the Island Shirt Shop in North Wildwood, open year-round. Second
ABC News.
Money Talk with Melanie, brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
This is important because it's your money.
Your money.
Money Talk with Melanie
Money Talk with Melanie.
on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest this hour is Mike Fitzpatrick of the NCX Group. You should check them out and follow them on Twitter and on Facebook. What are your handles, Mike?
NCX Group. Makes it simple.
I think it's the same on Insta, right? It's on Instagram as well.
Yeah, it's same on Insta, same on Facebook, Twitter, and those are the main ones. LinkedIn for the business side.
And now I know your secrets as to how you come out with all this fantastic content. Now I know your secret. I'm like, how does he do that? I've been wondering. I'm like, okay, he's a tech guy, but he's also like this master marketing dude, because I keep up with you on LinkedIn. And I'm like,
it's really interesting, from the standpoint we have been writing about what is going on from a cybersecurity standpoint now for probably close to 12 years. I'd like to say, and the key word being like to say, that things have gotten better from a cybersecurity standpoint. Quite frankly, they've gotten significantly worse. And a lot of it has to do with the whole, patchwork aspect of compliance. Compliance is theoretically is a good thing. Theoretically, the bad thing from a cybersecurity standpoint is the bad guys know how high you're building your walls. They know how you're constructing your walls. They know what they have to do to get around it, over it, or through it. They know specifically how you're building it and what is most likely. So if they know that, and I mean, these people are highly intelligent. So for them to know that, they know how to defeat that. It's so much better to be able to throw some things in that cause them heartache, that cause them to slow down.
Now, in addition to slowing them down, is it legal to do anything retaliatory? Not anything illegal. Just like, okay, you shouldn't have been doing what you were doing anyway, technology-wise, because you were trying to invade my database. Is there any way to do like Uno game, like reverse back to you kind of thing to their computer when they do something terrible? They attempt to do something terrible to yours, like instead of just not enabling them to do it. Like I feel like there should be punishment, and immediate punishment.
You know, the whole idea of an offensive counterstrike has been around for quite a while. The whole idea of it.
So I'm not the first crazy person who thought of that.
No, I mean we've all had those thoughts, but unfortunately, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act don't carve out, your ability to launch a counterstrike.
You should be able to do that. It's like the right to carry, right? Like somebody tries to carjack you. Uh-oh, I got a gun too. Now you're in trouble. So like, I feel like if hackers who are hacking for nefarious purposes knew that I might get hacked back or get something worse because I'm messing around with, this huge hospital or whatever, maybe they would think twice before they did it.
Well, I mean, the problem is the response time, right? I mean, because not everybody has a team to go, strike back. The other side of that is the legal aspect of it. And from a cybersecurity standpoint, everything we do is defensive.
Right.
Everything is, and I've used this analogy in the past, it's like playing, goalie in the NHL, right? You're swatting at pucks, knocking them down, trying to keep them out of the net.
Right.
It's solely defensive. And, the government, has a different view of that, but, they don't have to, they don't have the same constraints as we do. And so, do we get there at some point? I think maybe we get there at some point, but when that's going to be, I don't know. I mean,
because who are you going to tell? It should be some kind of technology punishment, right? That like you would be embarrassed to tell somebody that happened, because the only way that would happen is if you were trying to do something nefarious. You know what I mean? Like, surely the best and the brightest minds can come up with something. I'm not one of them, but I just come up with the bad ideas.
Well, you come up with the provocative thoughts that lead to good things. But, it's interesting from the standpoint that, where we're all going with all of this, right? I mean, there was an article today in Dark Reading, which is a cybersecurity publication, on deepfakes being utilized more and more within phishing. And whether that is an image, whether that is a video, whether that is text, it is being used more and more. And quite frankly, there isn't a technology solution to that.
Do you tell your potential clients that? Like, there's nothing we can really do about that in particular now.
It comes down to training and education in a lot of ways for your staff. Not only does it help them in their personal lives, it helps your business at the end of the day to actually be doing cybersecurity awareness training.
I literally, in my 12 years of teaching, I don't think I had any cybersecurity training. I had plenty about microaggressions, though, and I feel so much better.
I find it interesting that CISA from the federal government is supposed to be all things cybersecurity, even though they missed the whole SolarWinds, Microsoft, and FireEye stuff that happened.
You posted article after article on LinkedIn about that
Yes.
craziness.
Yes. Because, I mean, this is the same group that said the election was the most secure ever, but they missed the whole supply chain breach into the U.S. government and the military.
Oh
Missed
my
that.
gosh. I can't.
So, so you've got this, as far as really understanding where the breaches are and where the impacts can be and where they can come from, you've got this new threat that's on the horizon, and you've got security teams that are understaffed and undertrained and underfunded in a lot of ways. And oh, by the way, let's not even talk about exhausted
I'm
through
sure.
the last 2 years, right?
Yeah,
No
I
one
think
wants
every
to
IT
talk
person
about-
everywhere is exhausted for numerous reasons.
No one wants to talk about all the IT hours through that pandemic to keep everybody's digital transformation functioning.
Right.
There are so many IT people just walking away right now. They've had it. They're exhausted. They're spent. I mean, nobody gets medical supplies or food or anything else without IT functioning.
Absolutely. Nobody gets anything without you guys. I mean, that's just the fact.
And so we're all categorically exhausted from what has happened over the last 3 years. And so you've got these new threats. You have not enough cybersecurity people. 82% of businesses are reporting a shortage of skilled cybersecurity people. You have a growth market in higher education in pumping out cybersecurity degrees, charging people $200,000 for a cybersecurity degree. The problem is when they come out with that bright new shiny degree, they don't have any practical experience to actually understand how networks work, or how on the other side of it, what are workflows? What are the possible attack vectors? They don't have the practical application of it.
Right. And people really do think that once they have that degree, they can just go out there killing it. And that's only like part of the of the process. It really is.
I met a young lady during the pandemic when I went over to Starbucks to go get an iced green tea, and she was the barista, and she said she was talking to me about school and college and how she just graduated. And I said, "What's your degree in?" And she said, "It's in cybersecurity." I said, "Interesting." I said, "Where did you get your degree from?" She says, Cal State San Bernardino. I said, "Well, that's one of the better programs in the country." And I said, "Have you gotten a job yet?" And she goes, "No, I can't get hired." Reason why? She has no practical application and no practical experience in IT behind her.
That's sad.
So
You would think there would be, I don't know, I guess there's no entry level where you could gain that experience, no interning programs, nothing like that, where...
Don't have the time for it.
Oh, well.
I mean, honestly, right? I've got companies to protect. We've got serious work going on. Don't necessarily have the time to babysit and bring people along. So my advice to her was go spend 2 years doing IT. Go work as an admin. Go work as, somebody within the infrastructure group within a company. Go do that. Really understand how to, and I say this to people all the time, the perfect cybersecurity person is somebody that has incredible ethics and morals. So somebody out of, a lot of times is out of the fire department, military, police department, along that line. Reason morals are important, it's too easy to go to the dark side. That's where the real money is.
But then, what about your mirrors and whatnot? What about having to look in the mirror?
Well, I mean, morals aren't as important as they once were. It's interesting. The other side of that is, from a technology standpoint, you need to know how to break something, put it back together, and from a communication standpoint, write a report that tells me how you did it, step by step.
Okay, that makes sense.
Those kinds of things, not only then write the report, then show me real time how you did it.
Well, it sounds to me like what you really need to be is a professor.
Who, me?
Yep.
I don't have that kind of time.
Or you need to train professors. You don't have that kind of time either. But your mind and your expertise is needed in higher ed because we need more people.
So, I mean, the real problem here is once we get into artificial intelligence, think about this. If there is a breach and AI starts to become more aware over time, right? There is a breach and you're able to launch artificial intelligence into somebody's network. That artificial intelligence is going to have the capability to evade detection.
It really is. And we're up against a break. And I want to talk to you about that on the other side of the break and some things that people can do to protect themselves from holiday scams. But don't let me forget about the Facebook dude engineer that got fired for saying exactly what you're saying. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
Talk with Melanie, brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics
Money Talk with Melanie.
on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back. We're talking to Mike Fitzpatrick this show. We're talking about the holidays. We're coming up on, we talked about Black Friday. No, it's not an African-American holiday. That was a joke. Don't anybody get offended. I was just kidding. I'm black. I can joke. It's just a joke. Black Friday is referring to an accounting practice. Anyway, and we talked about Small Business Saturday a tiny bit. Small Business Saturday is kind of the day that's dedicated to making sure you patronize your small businesses. Don't just buy stuff online. Don't just go to these big box stores. Your mom and pop stores have plenty to offer, and Small Business Saturday is the day to do that. Curiously, I did not know this, but American Express claims that they created Small Business Saturday. I did not know that. When I looked up the history of it, that's what they said anyway, according to their website, that they created it. Which it sounds like something an American Express would create. But
yeah, it makes a good ad campaign.
It does, right? I was like, oh, they did? Okay. But then, of course, one of the bigger things, I think Cyber Monday is probably bigger than Black Friday, bigger than Small Business Saturday, because you just have access to the world, right? And it's super convenient.
Right? What have I always talked about? Is it convenience versus security? Right?
Yes, and people will give up their. You always talk about how people have no problem giving up their security for the sake of convenience, and you are not wrong. And I'm one of those people. I just can't. I can't. I like people, but I don't like the people in person.
Well, and the whole Amazon habit.
What Amazon habit? I don't know what you're. Did you see the outside of my door when there was? I'm getting ready to go on vacation, so there was 5 Amazon bags outside my door just when I got home this afternoon.
Talk about Amazon for the last 3 years, or almost 3 years now. Sitting here in my home office, I watch 2 to 3 Amazon trucks a day go down my street. Ask me now how many Amazon trucks are driving up and down my street.
Oh, how many?
Maybe 1 a day.
Really? People are off the Amazon.
Or
have you talked to each one of your neighbors individually?
No, I see the trucks go by. So it's one of these things. I mean, you got to take a look at. I mean, out here in California, I don't know what gas prices are in New Jersey, but here in California, they've been as high as $7 to $9 a gallon.
Yes, my brother lives out in Long Beach. He sends us pictures. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, then you've got the cost of food is increased by 50+%. Some things 100%. So they don't have discretionary spending anymore. But getting back to what we were talking about, the threats on the horizon for all this is quantum computing is a reality. You have AI gaining more and more capabilities, and that's part of why I'm actually utilizing some of the AI tools for everything from content development and ideas and tweets and jokes to using AI for video production. So, it's nice to be able to understand these tools and how they can be applied from Sun Tzu said, right? Deception, art of war is always based in deception.
True.
So from that standpoint, it's great to understand that. So quantum computing on the horizon, that means every encryption key that's known to man right now, it will be broken. So that becomes really problematic. So
are the white hats working on these things?
It's interesting. A friend of mine has developed a new command and control structure for encryption that makes it a post-quantum computing cipher. And so long and short of that is it literally can take the standards that we have now, reinforce what's there, manipulate it in such a way that it's undetectable, and it would take something beyond quantum computing to break it.
Okay, now what is quantum computing? Who uses it? How would we know if we're being affected by it?
Well, quantum computing is still being worked on, and China is actually making the most progress in quantum computing by all reports, right?
Great.
So that's still probably, I'd hate to put a number on how many years out that is, but you've got that. You've got, we're headed into a downturn in an economy. So the scams are going to go up. During 2008, what we saw, information was stolen left and right from companies by employees who were financially in trouble in trying to save their house. I mean, at the time in 2008, an identity in Los Angeles down at Griffith Park could be sold for $65 an identity. So if I'm able to pull information off of company servers and move it to my mobile device and then take that data file and sell that data, let's say 1,000 records. 65 times 1,000 is 65,000, right?
That's just so much money.
Well, that's maybe 8 months, 6 months of relief to somebody that's going through a hard time.
Sure.
So what if they took 10,000?
Right.
If they took 100?
And that's the way they start thinking.
Well, I mean, there was one article, and this is still in my mind. This guy walks out. He was a CIO for a company, and he gets fired. And he walks out with the backup tapes, and there's 100 million identities on the backup tapes.
And nobody, this is why you're supposed to get escorted out in these kind of situations.
Yeah, well, most companies don't have a process in place for actually dealing with the cybersecurity consequences when they fire somebody or lay them off.
No, as a matter of fact, I quit a place, and the story behind why I quit was not awesome. And I was like, they're so dumb. I bet they didn't get rid of me in the email system yet. So I'm going to tell everyone what happened. And guess what? It had been 3 days, and I was still there.
I bet if you go check now, you're still there.
So it's so funny. Like about 10 minutes after I sent that email to like the entire company, the head of the company called. It was weird. But don't mess with me. I'm not the one. I read.
So to answer the question on the technology that has come up with a way to solve this is a company called IPK Technologies, and they're just coming to market, and it's some really cool stuff. And so, I'm excited for my friend as far as where that is going to be able to go. And if we can help him with things, we are. The other technology, and again, unfortunately, through automation, humans are going to lose their jobs, and especially in repetitive tasks.
Right.
So one of the key elements of cybersecurity is physical security. And you've heard me say this, without physical security, there is no data security.
Right.
Well, so human guards, given, you know, pay, and again, here in California, you may have humans being paid $25 to $50 an hour for physical guards. I can actually, there's a company that, and again, full disclosure, that I've invested in, that actually is security robots, and they deliver this as a service, and it's as cheap as 75 cents an hour for robots to actually, they're autonomous robots, and they can actually move through your parking lot or through your building. And oh, by the way, they're connected to the internet, and
see, I don't love that. I got to be honest. As techie as I am, I don't love autonomous. I don't love them just walking around all by themselves. I'm not good with that.
Well, the other part you won't like is they're connected to through facial recognition system. They're connected to criminal databases.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. That's great.
Why?
Well, it's good, right? Well, do you remember the movie Minority Report? I'm probably dating myself.
Yes, I do.
But it reminds me of the movie Minority Report.
But we're also rolling into, with with ESG scoring, right? We're moving into that social credit system that was in Black Mirror. If you go watch the Black Mirror episode, and whether she could travel or buy something was determined on how liked she was by society.
Oh, I would be locked in my house for sure. No doubt about that. Now, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, these scams are going to, with what's coming from an economic downturn perspective, and I think everybody understands that there's a reckoning coming, right? This shouldn't surprise anybody. Historically, my son is 22 years old. 100 years ago, my grandfather was 22 years old. And at that point, he had been through World War I. He had been through the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. And he had been through the 1920 depression following the pandemic. We're in a similar cycle.
Yes.
So there, you can't just print money endlessly and expect there to be, lollipops and rainbows.
Right. No repercussions from that. Well, but people don't understand basic economics, Mike. So no. you're talking over people's heads in some ways because they don't understand that it's inflationary and why it's inflationary. You have too much money chasing too few goods, and that raises the cost of those goods. A lot of people don't get it, don't engage. They look at that as politics and having nothing to do with them.
No, again, it's all part of the system, and it's all part of what's going on. But the scams are going to greatly increase. It's what we saw in 2008. The amount of forensics projects that we did in 2008 because of data breaches was off the hook. So we're already starting to see similar activity. We're already starting to see, because people will become desperate. And as I said, a lot of these social engineering attacks, whether it's romance or whether it is business email compromise, whether it's phishing or whether it's a phone call to a mom who's being told that her son is in jail and you need to send us $5,000 overnight to get him out when he wasn't actually in jail.
Right.
People are emotional. They're in a stress-ridden state in a lot of ways right now, more so than they've ever been. The world is changing, and a lot of folks just don't understand how or why it's changing. And because of that, it makes people more susceptible to that type of social engineering attack.
It does. It certainly does. I was reading when I was preparing for the show about how many people are scammed during the holidays in particular. And this article I ran into said, according to the Internet Crime Complaint Center in 2021, non-payment or non-delivery scams cost people more than $337 million. And then credit card fraud accounted for another $173 million in losses. And I was just like, oh my word.
Well, I mean, cybercrime in general, this year should top $6 trillion. If I'm remembering the numbers correctly.
Trillion with a T?
Trillion with a T.
Oh, jeez. That's a nightmare.
And that's globally. Right?
Okay.
So, I mean, the millions you're talking about start to add up to real money eventually.
Right.
And then you've got the cost of the business because they lost out or something did not get handled the way that it should. I mean, the article that you sent me as a reference for the conversation today, I found really interesting is in the listing of the states in which the most money is lost. California is at the top of the list.
Oh, you sure are. Look at you. You're number one. Now,
my folks back in Texas are not as gullible as the folks in California.
No, but New Jersey's up there with you. We're like number 6.
And then you go look at the bottom. West Virginia, Vermont, Montana, Wyoming, Rhode Island, New Mexico, and Alaska are like neck and neck.
Yeah,
no one's fooling them.
That is very true. Nobody's fooling any of them. They know better. But what I found, also in that article, what I found crazy, 75% of people who are victims of romance scams are college educated, which I shouldn't have found it so crazy because one of the reasons I decided to go to school was because I found a lot of college educated people that weren't that smart. And I was like, it can't be that hard. It must not be that hard because that person is not all that bright and she has a college degree.
Yeah. What's the old saying? C's get degrees.
Yes. I rebuke that notion. Only A's and B's acceptable. But 75% of romance scam victims are college educated. Middle to lower class Americans make up 84% of romance scam victims. And listen, I used to tell my students to never say never. Never use the word never or always. And if you get a question in testing that has the word never or always, it's almost always going to be false because nothing in life is never or always. I saw a meme the other day that said, those people who said they would never do something are nevering like they never before. And I was like, yep. And I said all that to say that I was thinking I would never give a dude money that I've never met in person. I would never do that. And then, next year sometime I'm going to be on a show talking about how I got scammed out of $500,000 from this very handsome picture on the internet. I'll be telling everyone about my experience. I don't know.
Look out for those frame models.
Well, yeah. I would like to think that I would fall into the 25% of college-educated people who haven't fallen for the scam. But these people are really good.
But, I mean, it's like I said at the beginning, right? Two things. One, people want to show you how smart they are. Two, they want to be helpful. Now, if I can manipulate, and I say that because this is part of what people hire us to go in and try to exploit these things. If I can exploit either one of those things, I'm in.
That's for sure. We're up against the break. We've been talking about adults and older people in different holiday scams, but young people are affected by this too, and we'll talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening with Money Talk with Melanie. We're on with Mike Fitzpatrick.
Brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie
Money Talk with Melanie.
on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We're on with founder and CEO of NCX Group, Mike Fitzpatrick, founder and CEO of NCX Group. I'm a professional, Mike. Can't you tell? I'm fading fast, man. I'm so tired.
It's a long day. It's only 5:38 out here on the West Coast, so there's still more time in the day.
Yeah, it's 8:39 here in wonderful New Jersey. And the weather was actually really nice today. But I'm getting ready to go on vacation, and you know how it is when you get ready to go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do like all this stuff and you're exhausted by the time it's time to go on vacation.
Yeah, you need a vacation from your vacation.
I do, and I have a long list in front of me. Like, what are you doing on Turkey Day? Packing, and making sure I have everything for my vacation. But it's going to be wonderful. I'm blessed. It's a good thing. But I wanted to talk about how young people are losing money. And when I taught financial literacy, I used to tell my students that they're targets for scams because they don't have a credit history. So they're prime targets for financial scams.
Yep. No, we've talked about that now with K through 12 and especially K through 12 and to the effect that eventually the bad guys run out of identities to do anything with, right?
Right.
So they need to go find fresh identities. And I coined the term back in 2003, 2004 of kitty identity theft.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the fact, if little Johnny's in first grade and there's a breach within the K-12 system of whatever district, right? Little Johnny is not going to find out that his identity has been trashed until he's 18 years old and goes off to college.
That's exactly right. And sometimes, sad to say, it's their own parents that do it.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, difficult economic times will make people do some really unusual things.
Yes. And that is kind. That is a kind way to characterize that.
Yeah, no, or they'll use the kid's identity to go get a loan for a business or whatever else.
Yep.
It's the stress of what people deal with in this economy these days, or in any economy for that matter, is really unbelievable. Again, I look at these 20-something-year-olds, which is the group that my son is in. And, when I was in that age, we were paying 75 cents a gallon for gas. And that was expensive because it was 25 cents before it jumped. And, sure, we were only making minimum wage of $1.65 an hour. Then it jumped to $2.10, which was really exciting. But the dollar went further
Right.
than it does now.
Right.
And, so we actually, one of my son's friends is working 4 jobs at 23. He's teaching band as a consultant to 2 different high schools. And he is working at a driver's ed center to teach people how to drive. And, oh, by the way, he's finishing his degree at a 4-year now and is making that drive every day. Parents are divorced. One lives north of us by about 60 miles. The other one lives south of us by about 60 miles. So he's constantly on the road. So everything that he was making on these jobs was going into the gas tank.
Oh, sure.
And so we offered a place for him to live, and that way he could still put some money away because most of his life is right here. It's
right.
not where his mom or his dad lives. And so, again, we try to help out where we can that way. But, I talk about it all the time. I'm not sure how most people are making it.
I don't either. How people are doing it with kids and pets, and I don't know. There are people who can absorb the kind of inflation that we're going through, but there are certainly people who cannot, who have to make some really weighty decisions. I mean, so you're right about that for sure, and that's why I said earlier I'm blessed. I mean, I've complained about how tired I am because I'm about to go on vacation, but yeah, I don't. Fortunately, I've been okay. But there are people who have some serious obligations that this whole financial situation that we have right now is just unsustainable. And when you look at the young people, this stat that I saw in one of the articles I sent you was amazing to me. So kids are very tech savvy now, right? And what I see that's unfortunate is that a lot of parents are not. In fact, now this is what I found alarming, but not necessarily surprising. 54% of U.S. households in a poll say they do not monitor their children's activities online, leaving them vulnerable to internet risks. And the least of your worries is a financial loss on the internet. But parents do not monitor. The internet is such a dangerous place. It is the digital equivalent of letting your kid play in traffic, in my opinion.
I've actually referred to it as being the Studio 54 of.
There it is. That's even. Yeah. You're so right.
You walk through there, you're going to catch something.
Exactly. And for those of you who are like, "What's Studio 54?" Google it. That's all I can tell you. Google it. Some very naughty things. People who are going to end up on the naughty list.
Very naughty list.
We're at Studio 54 for sure.
So, I mean, it's an interesting dilemma, right? The problem is a lot of these younger people, they've never known a life without the internet. My son's kind of that way, right? He's had all the technology around him his whole life. He was learning how to run scans and work and watching us do penetration tests in the early days. So, he's got some capabilities. But at the same time, they don't value privacy in the same way that Gen Xers and, end of the line boomers, and even, do in the grand scheme of things, right? My privacy is everything. They don't view it that way. They give their information left and right and don't think two things about it.
And put their parents' information out there too. The conversations that I've overheard in my years of teaching, I'm like, oh my goodness. And sometimes they're saying things and they don't know what they're saying.
But they think they do.
You think they do?
They think they do. Well, they think they know. They think they know everything.
Well, listen, I overheard one of my students having this conversation about how he looks just like his uncle and not like his dad. I almost fell off my chair laughing. It's not funny, but I was like, first of all, don't tell people that. Like, don't. Just please.
No, that's not a good place to start.
But these are conversations that they have in front of people. And that's what I mean by, I don't think that you understand what you're saying.
No, and I've had this conversation with parent groups before. And I keep going back to my son. With my son, I mean, there's no pictures of him online anywhere.
No, I don't even know his name.
Right. I mean, when I mention him in social media, it's my son.
Yep.
And part of that is because of the work that I do. You don't know who or what might be trying to achieve whatever, right?
Yep.
So it is a protection mechanism. When my son was 14, the conversation around social media came up, and it was a real simple conversation. I'm not looking at that age. I'm not looking to be his friend. I'm looking to be his parent. And unfortunately, I've seen way too much in the horrible side of what happens with children with some of the things that we do. And so it was a real frank conversation, and I let him make the decision. And he decided he didn't need to be on social media. And so with that went away cyberbullying,
Yep.
went away all the keeping up with whatever on social media. He was able to read, he was able to study, he was able to have a relatively normal life rather than trying to keep up with whatever the pretend world is in social media. I honestly, Melanie, honestly, and you know me, I'm a small government person, but I think there needs to be real laws and legislation around what age somebody can have a social media account.
I agree with you. And you know me as well, being a small government person, but I completely agree with you to let, like I said, it's like you said, it's like, would you let your kid into Studio 54? It is the
Right.
same. If not worse, because at least if somebody spotted a kid in Studio 54, someone would probably immediately say, "Oh my God, there's a kid in Studio 54," and hustle them out of there, right? But
I mean, the worst of it is the online gaming.
Right, because they do it through the games now.
The pedophiles hang out in the game rooms.
Yep.
And they pretend to be kids.
Yep.
I've had two friends. One friend that I grew up with, his daughter was lured out of the house through social media. She was 16. A 21-year-old from Atlanta drove all the way to Dallas, Texas, to walk her out of her father's home when he was not there.
Wow.
Now, fortunately, and I was able to help him and work with, guide him in what to ask law enforcement and what to get law enforcement to do for him. We were able to get her back within a week. Now, another friend, again, his niece, lured out of the house by a boyfriend, and was going to be trafficked. And I mean, that was the way we got her back, was hand of God, honest to God. But I used every contact that I had within law enforcement to help find her. And unfortunately, not everybody has those contacts.
Exactly.
And again, if parents actually be parents, know who's in your house, because it's not just you and your family in the house. There's other people in your house.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, the some of the information that we went over prior to the show talks about this, talks about how the amount of money, this is crazy, lost by young people under 20 rose 43% last year, amounting to a record $101.4 million. That's up from $70.9 million. And the data suggests that youth exposure to technology, particularly social media, like we were just talking about, is what leads to the increase in susceptibility to scams and other harmful aspects of the internet, like we were just talking about.
Well, and I mean, for us, you know, we look at social media and we always have a little bit of a, you know, a doubtful edge to us, right? You know, and evaluating, that's BS.
Right.
Whereas they and that generation, they really trust what they see on the internet, and who's talking to them is really who that is, because that's how a lot of their engagement takes place. Again, it's amazing how much of it is psychological.
Yeah, it is psychological, and their brains are not ready to deal with the responsibility, in my opinion, of the internet. And some days I'm not sure my brain is ready.
Well, and that also goes back to why I think there should be, I mean, we have laws for drinking age. We have laws for smoking cigarettes and vaping and all of that. But we're turning our children loose to play in an adult world in social media. And that just doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. And then even I feel like parents with the best intentions forget how slick they were when they were kids.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
I was.
I, of course, me excluded, I was an angel. I never did anything wrong. And my parents, full disclosure, knew everything that I was up to, just in case my mom's listening.
My parents had their hands full.
No, I was the first. I'm the firstborn. My parents knew everything. I had an 8 o'clock curfew. It was ridiculous. They're crazy people. But and there was no internet back then. There was none of that back then. But kids are really slick, and they know much more about this technology than their parents do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that used to really bother me when I was teaching was when parents would say, "Oh, he's always on that thing. I don't know a lot about that." And they would just leave it at that. And I'd be thinking, like, that's not okay. That is not okay for you to not know a lot about that. Get to know.
No, the parents have to spend some time learning and not being afraid to experiment with things.
Right.
And, and try new things. I mean, as we talked about at the beginning of this, you're constantly amazed with what new technology I'm playing with.
True.
I have to experiment. I have to try new things from a technology standpoint. Otherwise, in my world, you get left in the dust. So from my perspective, I look at them and go, okay, how would I use this? How could I break this? How can I do this when I walk into a building, into a grocery store. First thing I start looking for is where's the cameras? Where's the blind
Of course
spot?
you do. We're at the end of the hour, Mike. That was fast. The end of the 2 hours. So tell people where they can find you, where they can find all your wonderful content that is very specifically and tediously written by you yourself and not AI.
So the best place is probably start at our website, and that's NCXgroup.com. NCXgroup.com. We actually just published an article on these internet scams. When Melanie sent the other over, I go, okay, this is actually a pretty good topic. So we published our take on it on our blog. So check that out. Again, the social handles are NCX Group on Twitter, NCX Group on Facebook, NCX Group on LinkedIn, and NCX Group on Instagram.
Thank you for staying with us for the full show. You're a rock star and a great friend, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Wait a minute. Should I even be saying that? We've never met in person. I would give you money.
No. But I haven't asked you for any either.
This is true. But I have met your friends of yours in person. Does that count?
Yes.
I have met
that
friends of
counts.
yours. I have met friends of yours in person who have met you in person. So that kind of.
Yeah. No, it's and it's interesting. I mean, we've lost a couple of them over
Yes.
the last 2 years too.
Yes. But thank you so very much for being here tonight. I appreciate it.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, and happy Thanksgiving to you, and enjoy your vacation.
Same to you and yours.
Thanks.
Money Talk with Melanie, brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics
Money Talk with Melanie.
on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back. I want to say thank you to my guest for the whole 2 hours. Mike Fitzpatrick told us all about some scams to look out for and how to avoid them. Fantastic guest. Don't forget to follow at NCX Group on all of his social media. I want to thank Mark on the boards tonight. Did a wonderful job for the entire 2 hours. I want to thank you, the audience, for listening. If you are listening live, thank you so very much. While you are brining your turkey and getting it ready for tomorrow. If you are listening by way of a podcast, thank you so much. Shout out to MrCreditRepair.biz, a.k.a. Robert Houston, for supporting the show. We should have a new sponsor coming on board within the next week or so. But the Business Diva will be on vacay next week, so you will get a wonderful best of episode of Money Talk with Melanie next week. But I think the announcement of the new sponsor will come as well. I hope. We'll see. But anyway, she'll be there soon. Anyhow, remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money.